Welcome, creative adventurers. I'm Debbie Cohn with Cohn Designs. Thank you for stopping by today. In today's video, it's week 4, block number 3 of my Walk in the Stars Quilt Along. The block is the reverse Sawtooth Star. I have one quick announcement before we get started, and that is I'm having an hour-long sew-along live on YouTube next Wednesday, October 11th at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and also 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It will be 1 hour long. I'll be talking about the Quilt Along, maybe showing you some of my other works in progress, about upcoming projects, and maybe even sewing a block or two. So I hope you'll join me for an hour. That's next Wednesday, October 11th, 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can put it on the background while you're sewing or doing other things. I'd love to have you. It will be live, so if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Tacked up on my design wall behind me is the background fabric for the quilt and the stars that we've made so far. Up on the top, up here, you'll see the friendship stars. Here's the reverse Sawtooth Star, which we'll go through in a moment. Down here is last week's the Ohio Star, and right behind me, let me step over, is the Starflower block, the final block in the quilt. This Quilt Along is a 6-part Quilt Along during October and November 2023. The Quilt Along is free, and so are the block patterns, as long as you download them before November 30th, 2023. You'll find the link for today's block pattern in the video description below. You can also find it on my blog at dcondesigns.com, along with the links to all of the other block patterns and the fabric requirements and schedule. It's not too late to join in, I promise. If you're sewing along with me, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you, and let me know what fabrics you've chosen for your quilt. First things first, what is a reverse Sawtooth Star? Well, a regular Sawtooth Star, as you can see in this example, the background of the star is a light color and a background type fabric. The star itself is focal prints or focal solids. However, as you can see in the reverse Sawtooth Star behind me, the background fabrics are actually a focal fabric, and the star itself is the background fabric. In this case, I have added a focal fabric in the center of the block. You could certainly make the center and the star points all one solid background style fabric. This reverse Sawtooth Star is just the same as sewing a traditional Sawtooth Star, except for the fabric choices. That's all. It's easy. So let's get sewing. Let's take a quick look at how the block is put together. First, in the 4 outside corners, you have your background squares. Next, on each side, you have a flying geese unit, and in the center, you have one large square. In this video, I'll take you step by step through how to make the flying geese, and then we'll put the block together. Now that we've looked at the anatomy of the reverse Sawtooth Star, let's look at the individual parts. First, the fabric A squares are the outside corners of the block. Fabrics B and C squares will form the flying geese units, and fabric D here will be the center of the block. We're going to use the 4 at a time, no waste flying geese method. You may use any other method that you're comfortable with, half square triangles, or whatever other method works for you. The first thing you'll want to do is to draw a diagonal line on the back of your fabric B squares. Just line up your ruler, corner to corner. I'm drawing my line dark so you can see it on camera. You would want to do it as light as you can and still be able to see it. Use the marking tool of your choice. Now that we have our flying geese marked, the next thing we're going to do is to take 2 fabric B squares and lay them diagonally across from each other, right sides together, on top of a fabric C square. You'll want them to overlap. Here's a fabric B square and another fabric B square. The line should go diagonally across both of them. The next thing we're going to do is to stitch a scant 1/4 inch away from this drawn line. I'll show you what I mean by a scant 1/4 inch. In a standard 1/4 inch seam, you would line up your 1/4 inch presser foot right along the edge of the seam line, like I show in this photo. However, when you're sewing a scant 1/4 inch, you'll want to position your seam line just inside the presser foot 1/4 inch mark. As I've shown in this photo, you can see the pencil line is about 3 threads or so to the inside of the presser foot edge. It's important to use a scant 1/4 inch seam when sewing the 4 at a time no waste flying geese method, otherwise your units won't come out correctly. Before you take it to the machine, pin the fabric B squares for stability. When you pin the squares, make sure you don't pin inside the seam line, otherwise your pins will be in the way. Now that I've sewn a scant 1/4 inch seam along both sides of the diagonal line, I'm going to cut the sewn square in half. Now that I've cut it into 2 separate units, I'm going to open it up and finger press gently and then press with the iron, pressing the seam to the dark side. I'll come back and show you the pressed units. You want to be very careful when you're pressing that you don't swish or distort your block. This is a bias seam. Okay, I've pressed the seams to the dark side of the units. The next thing, you're going to take one of the units, let's move this out of the way, and you're going to lay a third fabric B square on the corner of the unit, like this. Next, we're going to sew a scant 1/4 inch again from the diagonal line on both sides. I promise this will turn into flying geese units. I know it doesn't look like it, but trust me, it will in just a moment. Let me stitch on both sides of that diagonal line and bring it back to you. You can see here I've stitched a scant 1/4 inch away from the diagonal line on both sides. The next thing to do is cut the unit in half. Here's where the magic happens. Line up your ruler, cut along the diagonal line. Now, to see the flying geese, there you go. You just flip that other triangle open. You can finger press gently. You'll press it, but I want you to see this. And there's a flying geese. So then when you open the other one, you'll have 2 flying geese units. Now that I've pressed the seams of my flying geese units toward the center triangle, I'm going to repeat the same thing with the other unit. Laying my fabric B square there, stitching on both sides, cutting and pressing. So I'll have a total of 4 flying geese units. These flying geese units will become the star points of the reverse Sawtooth Star block. Here is a flying geese unit with the seams pressed toward the darker triangle in the center. Don't forget to trim your units to the size in the pattern before you assemble the block. Here I've trimmed my flying geese and I have assembled the block. You can see you have your 4 outside corners, the 4 flying geese here, where the white part, the background, forms the star points, and in the center I've chosen to do a print that I want to feature in the block. You could, of course, just have it the same. The center could be the same as your background star points if you'd prefer. I think it looks great. I'm going to sew it together. I'll probably sew it in columns, these 2, these 2, these 2, and then add on the end pieces, and then I'll sew the rows together. One thing to note, when you've sewn the rows together, you're going to want to press the top row seams out away from the center of the block, the center seams in the second row toward the center of the block, and then the third row, the seams, press those seams out away from the center of the block. So it's out, in, out. That will make nesting your seams when you put the rows together to form the block, there, there, and there, to be quick and easy. I'll put this together and bring it back to show you the assembled block. And here it is, our reverse Sawtooth Star. Let's look at the back so you can see the final pressing. You can see that I pressed the 2 final seams open. You could press them toward the center of the block, but I think that it looks better and it is flatter when you press the final 2 seams open. You want to go ahead and make a total of 4 reverse Sawtooth Star blocks and be sure to trim them before you put them in the quilt. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and tell a friend. Ask them to join you in the Quilt Along. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on that notifications bell. That way you'll know every time I have a new video coming out. Those are the best ways to support my channel. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you soon.